In December 1823, a royal warrant was issued nominating the inaugural members of the New South Wales Legislative Council. They were a group of 5 notable officers from the colony who, with the governor presiding, would together form Australia's very first legislature. Now, this early council looked vastly different to the one we know today. It was small. None of the members were elected, and the 5 appointed gentlemen were to act as advisors to the governor rather than decision makers and law setters themselves. But when these men met for the first time, it was the first step in an incredible journey towards parliamentary democracy here in New South Wales. So, just who were the first 5 members of the council? Sir Francis Forbes was the council's longest-serving member among the first 5. He notched up an impressive 12 years, all while also serving as the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, which, like the council, was established in 1824. Before arriving in New South Wales, Forbes forged an exemplary legal career in the British Empire and proved himself one of the most significant public figures in the early colony. Forbes often stood his ground against governors who tried to overstep their powers. As the colony's chief judge, his role on the council was to ensure any law proposed for the colony was not, as they would say, repugnant to the laws of England. This set Forbes on a collision course with any governor who tried to abuse their powers. Case in point, in the late 1820s, Governor Darling tried to crack down on press freedom after newspapers called for his impeachment following the death of a prisoner who, on Darling's orders, had been subject to unusually harsh punishment. Forbes resolutely refused to certify Darling's laws to curtail the media and continued to be a firm advocate for a strong council with which the governor had to cooperate. This strong conviction, and perhaps this particular example of it in action, are what Forbes is most remembered for as a member of the council, to say nothing of his important career in the court. In addition to a Chief Justice, the council also needed someone experienced with running the colony. Who better than New South Wales' then most senior public servant, the Colonial Secretary, Frederick Goulburn. 5 years after fighting on the legendary battlefield at Waterloo, seasoned military officer Goulburn arrived in New South Wales. It wasn't long before he was appointed the colony's first official colonial secretary, responsible for getting his hands dirty running the colony's affairs on the ground. This included dealing with everything from convicts and revenue to land grants and administering government departments. Goulburn's frequent power struggles with Governor Brisbane earned him a certain reputation and eventual dismissal from the council just 2 years in, but he was praised by people like Forbes for his independence and impartial attitude towards free colonists and emancipated convicts alike. High mortality rates, diseases like smallpox and scurvy, and limited medical supplies meant life in the colony could be pretty miserable, and someone like James Bowman, the principal surgeon, was indispensable to the council. Considered an able doctor and skilled administrator, Bowman's role as principal surgeon meant he oversaw the colony's hospitals and medical supplies, and he even ran the newly built Liverpool Hospital in Sydney's southwest. As a member of the Legislative Council, Bowman certainly contributed his medical expertise, but advised across all matters before the council. Bowman's reputation was later sullied following allegations of corruption, including from his council colleague Forbes. But the most scandalous mystery surrounding Bowman was his appearance before the courts on criminal charges that he had fired shots at a man called William Atkinson at Woolloomooloo early one Wednesday morning in 1831. Bowman pleaded innocence, claiming his shot was intended to scare away a wild dog, and the charges were dismissed. But the newspaper reports of the day suggest not everyone was convinced of his innocence. Today, John Oxley is renowned as one of the colony's most famous explorers, successfully leading intrepid expeditions beyond the Blue Mountains, down the Lachlan and Macquarie rivers. Oxley had much less luck with money. His diminishing fortunes and outrageous debt even forced the illustrious landowner, John MacArthur, to break off the explorer's betrothal to his daughter. As an ambitious social climber, Oxley may have failed, but his friends in high places soon helped the beleaguered man achieve an appointment as the colony's Surveyor General, one of the oldest public offices in New South Wales, and responsible for managing and surveying land. Given the importance of land grants and development to the colony's growth, it's little surprise that Oxley also took a seat at the 1824 council as a member, although he served little over a year. Oxley's sons, John and Harry, followed in their father's political footsteps as members of the later Legislative Assembly, though politics was not their calling either, with both serving even shorter terms than their father. With Oxley's less than stellar adventures in money, politics, and high society, his life as an explorer is what he remains remembered for. And for this, his name appears across towns, suburbs, roads, and schools across New South Wales, including the 653-kilometre Oxley Highway. Rounding out the first five was Major General William Stewart, a distinguished military officer. Stewart was the colony's Lieutenant General at the time, which made him second in command in the colony after the Governor. He even governed New South Wales in his own right for 18 days before the arrival of Governor Ralph Darling, and he also established the New South Wales Mounted Police, locally known as Stewart's Police, to combat the colony's bushrangers, escaped convicts, and drunken settlers. The Mounted Police still operate today as the world's oldest continuous mounted police force, although they're more likely to do crowd control than tracking bushrangers. While Stewart was highly regarded by the Governor, the two didn't always see eye to eye. Like Forbes, Stewart criticised Governor Darling's orders for harsher than usual punishment against a felon, punishment some claimed caused the felon's death. It was a scandal that sparked outcries in the newspapers and even a House of Commons inquiry. Though he was absent from the very first sitting, Stewart served on the council for 4 years. After this, he embarked for military duty in India in 1827, where he was promoted to Major General. So these were the first 5 members of the New South Wales Legislative Council: Forbes, Goulburn, Bowman, Oxley and Stewart. While it's true these gentlemen were initially appointed to advise the Governor, as a council, they would come to be much more than a rubber stamp for the man in charge. They would debate, challenge, and even amend proposed laws, with the minutes of the early meetings telling the story of a council testing its own powers to actively shape legislation in New South Wales. If only they could see how far things have come. Today, the Legislative Council has 42 directly elected members from across the political spectrum, all with a critical role to play in making and amending state laws and in scrutinising and holding to account the government of the day.